Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your sun in Libra and Capricorn rising. And I can already sense that this is a very dynamic combination because we're talking about two cardinal signs. The other cardinal signs are Aries and Cancer, and they represent all four elements. And the reason that cardinal signs are so dynamic is that they represent the four seasons. And, we during those times, these are power periods of equinoxes and solstices, and they represent change, movement, and that's what the cardinal signs bring to the table. They tend to be doers, so they make things happen. Now, sometimes this can lead to people who tend to be bossy, especially with Aries, but this is not what we're talking about here. But what is contained in the word bossy? The word boss. And these people tend to be leaders because they are self-starters. They are not looking for other people to give them orders and to push them around. They actually want to push other people around. I'm kind of joking, but sort of not joking too, in the sense that they feel that leadership role and they feel like they have what it takes to get things done, okay? Because they are doers. So the fact that these two signs are cardinal signs and the particular signs that they are means that they square off. Now, this is not going to be true 100% of the time. You're going to have to look at your chart to see if that actually is occurring. A square is a hard angle that creates frustration. And that means that the person feels a sense of inability to bring those two forces that the two planets or 2 points represent to fruition, or an easy flowing nature. So there's a clash, in other words, and it's just like if two people clash with one another, they can't find that common ground, or they just irritate one another. And a square is an irritating angle. When people have squares with their sun and rising sign, because the rising sign is kind of a false front, and I shouldn't really characterize it as a false front, but it's not the ultimate nature of the person, what they came here to express, especially if it's in a hard angle. If it's, trining or even a conjunction, it will be more consistent, or a sextile. It will be more consistent. The energy will be more compatible with one another. So, but even if there isn't an official square between your sun and rising sign, you still may have a lot of the issues that go along with the square. So the sun is the center of your astrological existence. It's, if you want to talk about core personality traits, it's your core. All these other personal planets and points, including the rising sign, are part of that, but this is your core. If you know nothing else about a person, knowing what their sun sign is can give you a lot of information about them. That's why we say, what is your sign? We're not saying what is your moon sign, we're saying what is your sun sign. So what you want to accomplish, what your talents are in this world, can be demonstrated by your sun sign. The rising sign, it's like a blockage. So I feel, and I'm, when you become something, and I'm just saying an astrologer in this case, when I became an astrologer, I never thought I was going to be an astrologer, and I had read books and books on astrology for years and years before that, just assimilating this information. And when you read things, eventually you formulate your own opinions and theories, and they can dovetail with other people's, or you can be like, I'm not sure I believe that. And that's true for any profession and interest that you have. You have your own opinions because you have your own mind. You don't have to just go by something because it's published in a book or online or somebody has these accolades or whatever. You can decide. And I really, try to observe human nature, and I can kind of get a feel for things. But I read once that the rising sign is very prominent, influential for the first 30 years of life. And they didn't say anything else that I saw about why and stuff like that. And I thought, okay, well, what does that mean? And I realized that 30 years is around the time of the first Saturn return. I thought about myself and what happened with me. And so I really believe that if you have an inharmonious sun and rising sign, that you probably, I really believe that the rising sign has to do with your family of origin and the influence that you were raised with and how it clashes with your true self in this lifetime, not your true self. So if that is the case, and you are under 30, you're on the younger side, you may still be representing that Capricorn side. So what are you representing? You're representing this duty-bound person who is very in alignment with traditional values. You might feel that you are very family-oriented, and even the type of career path that you go on may be connected to Capricorn things. So that could involve any system, any hierarchy. I think about, so for instance, you work in education and your goal is to become the principal of the school. You want to work your way up. You might start as a teacher and then you work your way up. Or the government, you're working for the government. You're working in a healthcare environment and you want to work your way up. This is appropriate for people who have prominent Capricorn, but it's a rising sign, and it may be influenced if you had a parent who worked in those fields. You maybe feel like you're honoring your parent by working in that same field. But eventually, after we have our first Saturn return, we're in our early 30s and we start to individuate from our family of origin. In other words, we come into our own. We become more of our own person. I'm not saying that it is like that 100%. It may take time, especially if you have come from a very heavy-handed, controlling environment, to fully separate. And with Libra Sun, this can be particularly distressing because you tend to be very people-pleasing, to be able to say, I don't wish to follow in your footsteps or do what you want me to do. I'm going to choose this other area, and it could be something connected to the arts. And it may not be respected by the people around you, and you still have to do what makes you happy. But in terms of demeanor, this is something that I was really trying to get at. When there's a square between the sun and rising, people may sense something is not really authentic about you. Libra, as a sun sign often, or even a rising sign, often struggles with authenticity. As a person with Capricorn rising, you may, that means that your ruler is Saturn. So you may have experienced something to suggest that you were left to your own devices, that you were basically raising yourself in the extreme version of this, or that or maybe even emotionally that you came from a cold environment, even if it was like well off, it still felt very cold. And that can be very traumatic for a Libra person, even though Libra is an air sign and is not particularly emotional per se. You might have your moon in Pisces, you might have your moon in Cancer, and crave that type of nurturing. And just by virtue of being a Libra, feeling like you're not accepted or loved is particularly upsetting to you. And this can create more of that friction because the rising sign is the calling card, and it represents how you carry yourself in social situations. And you may kind of be actually emulating the very people who treated you this way. And so it becomes a vicious cycle because you're trying to be more of that sociable, how would I put it, a gracious type of Libra individual. Not to say that Capricorns can't be polite or anything like that, but there does tend to be that kind of stiff upper lip aura and way that somebody with Capricorn rising shows up in the world. And that is so not how you really are. And people who get to know you better, they see that. But it can be bothersome to you, especially, I would say, for those first 30 years when you're still in that Capricorn mode, to break out of that. Because again, it's friction. It's butting against this other thing that you want to become. And one of the ways that this mask can really play itself out is through a professional demeanor and in the work world, where you kind of maybe hide behind that even. I always joke that people with Capricorn rising, as a fellow woman, I always admired those women who had office clothes that were kind of tailored, but they might have been on the more conservative side, but they had that style to them. And they always say that Capricorn as a sign favors clean lines and classic designs that aren't faddish. And so that's part of it. David Bowie was a Capricorn sun sign. And if you look at how he dressed, I'm not talking about in the early 70s when he was, a glam rocker and into all that, but I'm talking about later in life. He would wear those suits but it was always there was like a stylishness. I mean, somebody can wear a suit or a woman wear a dress and it's kind of drab. It's professional, but it just kind of is yucky, for lack of a better word. I used to, work in a school district, and I went to buy some school clothes, and they were just a lot of them were kind of yuck. I just wanted to fit into the dress code, but I wasn't really tuned into that at that level. I wasn't channeling a Capricorn at that time. So having that Libra sun sign, you may really have a panache for that kind of ability to put yourself together and really look the part, but still be styling at the same time. So that's kind of funny and interesting too. So I don't know if that resonates, but it could very well do so. So the challenge is not to appear too cold and to show more of that charming nature of yours. I think it will come in time as you get older. The other thing too is you might even be a little bit shy, reserved with Saturn as your ruler and, Capricorn rising. And in love, and of course, I wouldn't have a video involving a Libra placement without saying love. You may find it a little bit challenging to mingle if you're single because you may have that shyness. And I feel like there's even a bit of vulnerability and insecurity with Capricorn. Even though they are a natural leader, they're still, in their private life, that's where they may feel that they are inadequate. And part of that is that Saturnian, if that's a word, influence, which kind of restricts things, including with the rising sign, your self-expression. So you may feel stiff in social situations. You may shy away from parties because of this, where you feel, I don't want to go to the extreme and say social anxiety, because I think that Libra is one of those signs that gets invited to parties a lot because you tend to be very intelligent, witty, but also polite and not wanting to create controversies. So people find you charming company, but you may feel like a fish out of water sometimes. So it's all about integration and learning to soften those squares through not being afraid of being awkward. Again, awkwardness is simply part of life. I think most of us feel awkward in areas that we feel we're not as adept at. Some people are more able to hide their insecurities than others, and maybe you're not one of those people that can hide it that easily, but don't shy away from what you're meant to do, which is to be a people person by your own kind of inhibited nature. So put yourself out there, and also don't sell yourself short. Try to learn who you are, not necessarily by accomplishments, but at a higher level. This is where a lot of Capricorns, and I'm including anybody with a prominent Capricorn, are easily led astray in thinking that they can find out who they are by success. Capricorn rules the 10th house of career and status, your public reputation, your place in the world. But the key for me in that statement is world. That's worldly. That's not spiritual. In my opinion, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So we acknowledge our humanness. We don't shy away from it. We don't try to just live in a cave and meditate all day. But by the same token, we have to put it in proper perspective. And if a person is insecure, if they are looking for love even, sometimes people become successful because they're hoping that that will make them acceptable as a partner or acceptable to their parents. That's a big one too, is trying to please one's parents by choosing a certain career or choosing a life path. And you have to be very able to separate yourself from the desires of other people so that you can be authentic, because other people may sense this square. they may sense that there's something that is not really cohesive between, how you are presenting yourself and who you really are, that there's some kind of a struggle there. And, I think most people in their 20s, as they're trying to establish themselves, find out who they are, separate from their family of origin, they're going to run across this in a major way. But sometimes these identity issues continue as the person gets older. Look to see if your sun is in conjunction with Neptune or squaring it, opposing it. That can also indicate issues with identity, and there are other things as well. But anyway, I think that you can be a loyal partner and really feel that sense of appreciation for family, which is never a bad thing if that's what you're trying to accomplish. Some people who have families and they don't put their families first can learn the hard way that they missed out on such a blessing, because even, if your sun is in Capricorn, a person can be a workaholic because they're so obsessed with their career that they miss out on so many things. Just listen to that song by Harry Chapin called Cats in the Cradle, and you will get a red pill right quick about the importance of family. So that might be something that family versus career matters might come up on occasion. So integrating that can be good. But anyway, in terms of professions that you may excel in, anything that puts you as a spokesperson or PR person for a corporation or some other, I would say like an organization, that's what I associate with Capricorn, or like a government body or like a politician. Libra individuals often gravitate towards legal professions like lawyers and paralegals. So, that definitely has a connection with politics. So if you have gone that route with political science, you may end up being a PR person for somebody else. I think, this is just my Sag preachiness kicking in here. But I think that if somebody's going to be a PR person, they better align with the values of the person or the corporation they are speaking on behalf of. Because if you really want to feel that sense of living a life of integrity, it's important to, support organizations that align with your values or work for them. I mean, that's true for all of us, really. So, but the reason I say that is because sometimes if Saturn is at your ascendant, you may come from a very restricted environment. And in those cases, some people may be like, I have to do whatever it takes to raise my station in life. But you don't want to do anything that degrades you spiritually. You want to feel like what you're doing is living in integrity. So other things, Libra's an air sign, so any education. And that's why I was talking about like moving up on the ladder to becoming the principal. But if you are a person who really loves to teach, then that might be enough for you because you want to be in the classroom in that case. but you would even be have the mental ability to work at the college level, and that might be your preference anyhow, to engage in a particular subject matter at a higher degree. Artistic professions, maybe you want to become a makeup artist and you want to work with the rich and famous. Because I always think of the 10th house that Capricorn rules is the house of fame. And so a person who has Libra as a sun sign and Capricorn rising might be attracted to the entertainment field, either as a performer yourself or working on others, maybe a hairstylist or a makeup artist. But you know, there's no end to what you can do with you might even have physical beauty, being a Libra, but with usually the rising sign is particularly influential in this. If even if you're young, you might have heard of Marlene Dietrich, who was a famous star of the 1930s. I don't know if she was in the silent era. I don't think I've ever seen one of her movies. I'm certainly not of that era. But she was a Capricorn, and she had high cheekbones. And high cheekbones, so did David Bowie. High cheekbones are, you know, the kind of sculpted face. That is a Capricorn. Capricorn rules bone structure, you know, the skeletal system. So I can think of this combination as being beautiful as well, and having a love maybe in the fashion industry, or, you know, whether you work with designing clothing or what have you. Okay, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a natal chart analysis, at the time of this recording, I have package deals, natal chart interpretation, full length plus full length transits for the upcoming 12 months, called my deep dive reading. And I also have tarot and chart analysis, plus single readings. You can find out more information at the link below. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye.